After my last briefing on balance degradation, my inbox was flooded. Hundreds of you demanded the same thing. You wanted the actual physical protocols, not just the theory. The exact movements the private clinics charge thousands for. You are entirely right to demand that. Today, I am leaking the entire protocol. Every single technique I utilize in my private practice, I will demonstrate for you live. Zero confusion, zero hidden agendas. Let us establish a baseline reality before we proceed. Picture 3 individuals completely unable to hold a straight line while walking. A stroke survivor, a guy who drank heavily at a bar, and an infant attempting to stand for the very first time. Every single one of them staggers. Yet, if you put them in front of a standard neurologist, you would get 3 completely different diagnoses. The underlying mechanisms are entirely different. That is the exact secret the industry is missing. Here's the tragic error I watch patients make every single day, directly because they were fed the wrong information by the medical establishment. They notice a slight wobble, and their immediate instinct is to build leg strength. They grind out squats. They waste money on useless calcium supplements. They look up generic stability drills online. They try it all, and absolutely nothing changes. Why? Because they are treating their legs, and their legs are completely innocent. If you stagger when you move, if you drift sideways in a perfectly flat grocery aisle, if you trip over your own feet on a smooth sidewalk, you do not have a leg problem. You have a neurological deficit. To be highly specific, you are facing a blood supply restriction to a processing center in your brain called the cerebellum. Today, I am pulling back the curtain on exactly why this is happening. The precise physical failure occurring inside your body right now, and what you can do to hijack that process and reverse it starting today. I will shoot straight with you. The algorithm actively suppresses this kind of clinical truth. The corporate medical machine does not profit from your independence. It profits from your managed decline. If you want to stop being a patient and start taking control of your own biology, subscribe and share this video right now. We need to build this community before they try to take this channel down. Let us build from the ground up. Why are your legs not the issue? I run this exact thought experiment with my private clients. Take a healthy adult and ask them to balance on one leg. They lift a foot and lock in. Flawless stability, minimal effort. Now observe someone suffering from this specific coordination deficit. Put them in a wide, empty corridor. Their leg muscles are perfectly strong. Their joints are structurally sound, but they immediately veer off toward the wall. What is the actual difference? The hardware in both cases is perfectly fine. The difference is the command center running the software. Your bones and muscles are just biological mechanics. It is brilliant hardware, but it is entirely stupid on its own. It needs a central processor to issue commands. That processor is your brain, specifically the cerebellum. The cerebellum is your internal gyroscope. Millisecond by millisecond, it pulls raw data from your joints, your muscles, your eyes, and your inner ear. It calculates micro adjustments to keep you upright and moving forward. When that computer has full power, you walk effortlessly. When the establishment tells you that you are just getting older, what is actually happening is that your computer is running on a strangled power supply and you stumble. That is the whole mechanism they refuse to explain to you. Consider a biomechanical reality that the industry knows but rarely shares with the public. Walking is simply falling in a controlled manner. That is not a metaphor. It is the literal physical reality of what is happening. With every stride, your torso pitches forward, shifting your center of mass past your base. For a brief instant, you are plummeting toward the ground. Right on cue, your lead leg automatically snaps forward to break that fall. Every single step is a controlled fall caught by a leg. The cerebellum acts as the master clock dictating that timing. Get the timing wrong by a microsecond and you trip. That explains why an infant falls so often when learning to walk. It is not weak legs, it is an untrained cerebellum. Over months, the brain writes the necessary code. The patterns become subconscious, and she walks without falling. But here is the reality the medical establishment conveniently ignores as we age. When those coordination problems creep back in decades later, they immediately write it off as normal cognitive decline. It is not normal. It is a mechanical circulation problem. The areas of your brain that control movement, specifically the cerebellum, are being starved of oxygen. And any neurological center deprived of its fuel supply is going to fail. The industry treats the brain like some mystical black box, but it is a physical organ, just like your liver. It requires massive blood flow. Let me give you a statistic that usually shocks my new patients. Your brain accounts for maybe 2% of your body weight. Yet it hoards roughly 20% of all the oxygen you breathe. It is hypersensitive to any drop in supply. Restrict that pipeline even slightly, year after year, and the damage becomes impossible to ignore. In my underground clinic, the pattern is undeniable. Patients who come to me staggering or losing their balance almost always have a cluster of other symptoms that their primary care doctors completely dismissed. First, vanishing short-term memory. You walk into a room and the reason evaporates. You lose your sentence halfway through. Yet, you remember 1995 flawlessly. That is not Alzheimer's. That is an energy crisis. Short-term recall requires instant metabolic fuel. When blood flow drops, it is the first system to shut down. Second, crushing mental fatigue. Work that used to take an hour now takes 3. By 2 in the afternoon, your brain is a dead battery. Third, chronic brain fog. It feels like you are trying to process information through a thick layer of wet concrete. If you are nodding your head right now, listen to me carefully. Do not let a doctor tell you to just accept this. It is a mechanical failure, and it is entirely reversible. Let us look at the cerebellum itself, the processor they never talk about. It sits right at the base of your skull. By volume, it is barely 10% of your brain, but it contains more than half of your entire nervous system's neurons. More than 50% of your processing units crammed into a tiny space. It is incredibly dense hardware. Cut the power supply to that region and the entire network crashes. A few years ago, I had a patient, let us call her Carol, mid-40s. She came in complaining of clumsiness, bumping into walls, dropping coffee mugs. Her corporate GP told her she was just stressed and prescribed her a generic muscle relaxer. Classic gaslighting. When I actually listened to her, she revealed the memory lapses and the afternoon exhaustion. Her doctor saw 3 separate profitable symptoms. I saw 1 mechanical restriction. The vascular pipeline in her neck was physically crushed, choking her cerebellum down to 60% capacity. We bypassed the pills, fixed the mechanical block in her cervical spine, and used the exact movements I am going to show you. Within 30 days, the stumbling vanished, her vocabulary returned, and the brain fog lifted. That is what happens when you ignore the pharmacy and fix the actual biology. Why the neck? Because of a massive anatomical vulnerability they do not teach you about. The back of your brain is fed by 2 vessels called the vertebral arteries. Unlike other blood vessels, these do not just run alongside your spine. They are literally threaded through the bones of your neck. They travel up through tiny holes in your cervical vertebrae, loop around the base of your skull, and merge into the basilar artery, the single pipeline feeding your cerebellum. Think about the sheer mechanical risk of that design. Your brain's primary fuel line is woven through movable joints. If your neck locks up from sitting at a desk, if a muscle goes into chronic spasm, that artery gets kinked. The internal diameter shrinks. It will not cause a stroke today, but it will slowly, quietly starve your brain over the next 10 years. Reset the spinal alignment, open the bottleneck, and the blood floods back into the cerebellum. It is basic plumbing. But before we get to the protocol, stop doing what every physical therapist tells you to do. When people feel a stiff neck, they aggressively yank their head in circles or pull their ear to their shoulder. Stop doing that. You are forcing movement into the middle of your neck, the 5th and 6th vertebrae, which is already the most overworked, unstable part of your spine. You are just wearing out the joint. The actual blockages, the ones choking your brain, live at the extreme ends. The primary danger zone is the cervicothoracic junction, right at the base of the neck, where it meets the upper back. This is where people develop that thick bump, the so-called dowager's hump. It is not just fat. It is a dense traffic jam of locked ligaments and spasming muscle that physically restricts blood flow. The second danger zone is at the very top, right under the skull, where the arteries make their final turn into the brain. If you do not unlock these 2 specific gates, you are wasting your time. We are executing 2 tactical phases today. Phase 1 destroys the mechanical restrictions choking your neck. Phase 2 forces the cerebellum to rebuild itself. Movement 1 is unlocking the cervicothoracic junction. This is the exact technique private clinics charge you a premium for, and you can do it right now for free. Find the 7th cervical vertebra. Drop your chin down and run your finger down the back of your neck until you hit the base. You will feel one bony knob sticking out aggressively further than the rest. That is C7. Medical texts call it the prominent vertebra. Here is the mechanical secret they do not tell you. When you turn your head, your cervical spine rotates, but the lower bones, C6, C7, and T1, are anchored by stiff, rigid ligaments. They drag behind. Your objective is to manually override that drag. You are going to place a fingertip directly on that bony knob and manually assist its rotation in the exact direction your head is turning. We are not forcing, we are assisting. Plant the pad of your finger on the side of the C7 bump. Start looking over your right shoulder. As you rotate, apply a firm but gentle pressure to the right with your finger, coaxing the bone to follow. The ligaments holding these bones act like heavy rubber bands. You want to press until you hit a firm, elastic resistance. Stop right there. Do not try to crack or force it. That exact point of light tension is where the physiological change happens. Here is the trick. When you return your head to neutral, do not let go of the bone. Keep your finger pressing into the vertebra for an extra second as the head unwinds. That counter movement creates a targeted stretch directly on the joint capsule. That is the actual therapy. If you notice your C7 is naturally sitting off to one side, use this technique to gently nudge it back toward the center. Never push a misaligned bone further out of place. We are restoring neutral geometry. After C7, drop down to T1, then T2. Use the exact same method, but with even lighter pressure because they rotate even less. I am demonstrating the full sequence right now. This specific junction is responsible for maybe 10% of your neck's rotation, but it commands a massive amount of influence. Unlock this base and your entire upper neck instantly decompresses. It even frees up your shoulder girdle. Movement 2 is the cervical muscle release. The industry loves prescribing synthetic muscle relaxers for this. We are going to fix the actual biology instead. A spasming neck muscle acts like a vice grip on those vertebral arteries. Stretching it properly is a direct clinical intervention. Pin your collarbone down with one flat hand. Now, smoothly, without jerking, lean your head to the opposite side and point your chin slightly up. You will feel a deep, clean pull down the front and side of the neck. That is the sternocleidomastoid muscle. When it gets chronically tight from staring at screens and sitting at desks, it yanks your skull forward and physically crushes your vascular pipelines. Hold that tension where it feels like a strong stretch, not sharp pain. Breathe, then return. Adjust your angle slightly backward to hit the posterior fibers, then switch sides. Do not just drop your ear to your shoulder like an amateur. That only grinds the joints we are trying to save. I am showing you the precise angles right now. Finish this phase with manual release. Reach behind your neck, dig your fingertips into the thick muscle bands on either side of your spine, and knead them firmly. It is safe, it costs you nothing, and it breaks the final tension. As you do this, remember what you are actually doing. Your neck is not a hinge. It is the single biological corridor connecting your body to your brain. Every ounce of fuel and every nerve signal goes through there. Open the corridor and you instantly boost cerebral blood flow. That means sharper memory, absolute clarity, and upgraded cognitive stamina. It even drives blood to your scalp and face. One mechanical fix, massive systemic upgrades. Now we move to Phase 2. Phase 2 is the hardware upgrade. We've opened the fuel lines. Now we have to force the brain to optimize the system. Your cerebellum is a high-performance processor, and just like your muscles, it only adapts when you push it to the edge. We're using neuroplasticity, the brain's built-in ability to rewire itself, to rebuild your stabilization network from scratch. If you give it the right stimulus, it responds with incredible speed. Drill 1 is the coordination disruptor, pelvic rotation with limb independence. Stand up, feet at shoulder width. Start rolling your hips in a slow, continuous circle. Notice how your legs automatically want to step and sweep to keep your balance. Let them. You're now running a subconscious stepping pattern. Now the disruption. Start drumming your hands in the air with a completely different, faster rhythm that has nothing to do with your hips or legs. You have 3 separate movement patterns firing simultaneously, none of them synchronized. This is an intensive cerebellar workout. The first few times you try this, you will look and feel clumsy. Your brain will try to sync your hands to your hips. Good. That awkwardness is exactly where the training happens. It's the sound of your cerebellum operating at its absolute limit. Keep at it daily and the static will clear. You're hardwiring new neural pathways. Drill 2 is spotting your turns. You've seen elite dancers spin for minutes and walk off stage like they're on rails. They don't have special ears. They have superior training. They use a technique called spotting to protect their brain from vestibular overload. Fix your eyes on a single target straight ahead. Now, execute a full spin. As your body rotates, keep your eyes locked on that spot for as long as your neck allows. Then snap your head around to find that same spot again immediately. This prevents the constant fluid movement in your inner ear from triggering dizziness. It trains your brain to maintain a rock-solid spatial orientation even when the world is moving. Start slow, build velocity, and reverse directions. You're training your sensory receptors to stop overreacting to movement. It's a literal upgrade to your biological gyroscope. Drill 3 is the ultimate stimulus, Sufi spinning. This is one of the oldest neurological training methods in existence. Practiced for centuries, this continuous, high-speed spinning forces the cerebellum to manage extreme input without failing. A master of this practice can walk across a narrow beam in the dark without a single wobble. It is the most demanding stimulus you can offer your vestibular system. If you want the full breakdown on the safety protocols and the deep-level science of Sufi spinning, leave a comment. I'll expose the whole system if the demand is high enough. Before I sign off, here is the clinical reality they won't tell you about age. The establishment treats your age like a death sentence for your coordination. It isn't, but the strategy does shift. If you're under 40, your stumbling is likely an acute blockage, bad desk habits, or a recent injury. If you're over 60, you're dealing with decades of accumulated mechanical neglect. Both can be fixed, but the older you are, the more patience you need. I need to know who I'm talking to so I can keep providing the right data. How old are you? Put your age in the comments. It changes the prioritization of this protocol and helps me fight the algorithm to get this info to the people who need it. Here is your summary. If you stagger, your brain is starving because your neck is kinked. The corporate answer is pills and managed decline. My answer is mechanical liberation. Step 1. Unlock the base of the neck and the upper cervical spine every single day. Step 2. Force the cerebellum to rewire through coordination drills. Stop being a passive observer of your own decline. Take the protocol, do the work, and reclaim your balance. I'm Dr. Elias Thorne. This channel exists because the medical industry only wins when you stay broken. Don't give them the satisfaction. Subscribe, like this video, and let's grow this community before the truth gets buried. Get to work.